Hi, this is Patty, leadership coach at pattypost.com. And we have arrived in May, and in the midst of all the turmoil that we are experiencing right now in the world, of course, there's lots to say about the astrology of this month. Lots of changing gears, shifting gears again in May. So keep watching to hear it all. First, an aspect that will be running all over May and will hit 3 times exactly, and that is Venus square Neptune, and it will hit on the 3rd of May exactly, also on the 20th of May exactly, and later on in July on the 27th. Now, in astrology, it's often said that Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, and where Venus represents personal love, Neptune represents universal love, so a higher love. And that, of course, sounds really lovely, but always when Neptune is in the mix, and especially when it's squared to Venus in Gemini, we might get confused. Things might not be as they seem. Our vision might be blurred, so really be mindful for that. And also, Venus will turn retrograde this month, and more about that in a minute. Now, then a very significant event on the 5th of May, as the Nodal Axis, the nodes of the moon, are shifting from Capricorn Cancer to Sagittarius Gemini. Now, the nodes take about 1.5 years to move through an axis of signs. So in the past 1.5 years, we had the South Node in Capricorn and the North Node in Cancer. Now, the Nodal Axis gives us a hint on where we are heading to as a collective. So in the past 1.5 years or so, it was necessary for us to move away from the materialistic, hardworking and sturdy Capricorn energy attitude towards a more loving, caring for self and others, living from the heart kind of Cancer attitude. And interestingly enough, of course, in the final phase of this energy, we have been stopped in our tracks, forced to stay at home with our family, slow down, take really good care of ourselves and others, the people around us and our family. Now the nodal axis is moving to Sagittarius and Gemini, indicating a need for us as a collective to start breaking free from dogmatic belief systems, truths, opinions, and that we start stretching our minds to allow new information and perspectives to flow into our consciousness. Videos with alternative views on COVID-19, for instance, are currently being removed from YouTube and other channels, and they say it's fake news. But who is to decide what is right and what is wrong? So freedom of speech seems to be violated here. And Gemini is the archetype of the journalist who wants to seek information and new perspectives by asking questions. And with all the one-size-fits-all mainstream media, we might see a lot of progression here, as we definitely need to start asking more questions and challenge belief systems and truths that are being fed to us. So that's going to be really interesting. And Gemini is a very buzzy, fast-moving energy, and we might see a lot of progression in that department. So new inventions, lots of more information flooding to us. So we are heading to interesting times again. On May the 7th, we have the full moon of this month, and it takes place at 12:45 p.m. here in Europe, Central European time, and 2:45 a.m. Pacific time. And it takes place at 17 degrees of Scorpio. Scorpio is the most intense sign of the zodiac, and combined with the highly emotional energy of a full moon, which also happens to be a supermoon in this case, makes it even more intense. One of Scorpio's rulers is Pluto, and themes of power and transformation are running very high at this time of the full moon. And Scorpio is also about secrets, and this full moon might actually reveal secrets that have been hidden in the dark. And with all the conspiracy theories that we are seeing now appearing on social media, we might see that some of them might actually be true. How interesting would that be? The full moon is always a peak of the lunar month, and knowing where this full moon hits your personal birth chart identifies the area where this peak is taking place for you. If you have a hard time or do not know how to do this, I have created 2 videos to look up these events and how to read a birth chart, and I will link them up above and also below in the comments. Now, last month, Pluto went retrograde on the 25th, and in May we have 3 more planets going retrograde. First, on the 11th, Saturn turns retrograde at 1 degree of Aquarius, and he will move back in the zodiac all the way to 25 degrees of Capricorn by September 29, when he turns direct again. Now, Saturn is about rules and regulations, and when turning retrograde, his energy literally turns, which hopefully translate in a further lifting of all the lockdown regulations that we have in countries all over the world. And it's so interesting to see, because when Saturn moved into Aquarius in April, we were really confronted with all the restrictions, which is Saturn, in our freedom, which is Aquarius. And at the same time, we also started to see an uprise in the rebellious energy in the collective against those harsh regulations. And as always, when planets turn retrograde, their energy turns more inwards. And in the case of Saturn in Aquarius turning retrograde, it really reminded me of the work of Viktor Frankl. He is a Holocaust survivor who wrote his very profound book, Man's Search for Meaning. He was convinced that man can experience a fundamental sense of freedom even whilst in horror-like situations, and which to me feels very profound for these times where our freedom seems restricted in so many ways. And Saturn retrograde can help us to connect to that inner freedom and retreat from seemingly restricted circumstances. There's always freedom inside of us. Then 2 days later, on the 13th, Venus also goes retrograde at 21 degrees of Gemini. Now, Venus goes retrograde for about 40 days and 40 nights every 1.5 years. And Venus was extremely bright in our night sky by the end of April. And during her retrograde period in the coming weeks, she will transform from an evening star to a morning star while she passes between the Earth and the Sun. So then you can see Venus in the morning sky instead of in the evening sky. Now, Venus rules love, beauty, and money. And while retrograde, this could mean that your love or friendship relationships are up for scrutiny. Retrograde periods always have this evaluation-like feel to them. So evaluation of your relationships is definitely on the list in the coming time. Then beauty. It's a classic to say when Venus turns retrograde, you should not make any drastic changes to your appearance. And as you are evaluating what you value, because that's really the meaning of Venus and also your self-worth, your self-value, you might be too inclined to change and regret it after the retrograde period is over. And interestingly, while filming this, all hairdressers and beauty salons are still closed during because of the lockdown regulations. And slowly but surely, we are all revealing, especially the women, our natural hair color, and our perfectly cut shapes are slowly turning into birds' nests. How can we still value ourselves when this happens? And I would love for the hairdressers to open up again, really. And as mentioned before, Neptune is in a square with Venus all month, and that might also blur our senses as to what we really value. So be mindful of that. Venus also rules money, and this theme is also very relevant in this period because so much money has been spent on bailing out big corporations. Our stock markets are really volatile right now, and the economy is really unstable. And let's see what the Venus retrograde period, evaluation period, has in store for us in that department. Then finally, on the 20th of May, also Jupiter turns retrograde. He turns retrograde at 27 of Capricorn. And he will retrograde back to 17 of Capricorn until on September 13 when he turns direct again. Now, Jupiter immediately starts moving closer to Pluto again, who is also retrograde, really highlighting these issues of power and breaking down of structures and belief systems that do not serve us anymore. And this has been such a major theme in 2020 and will continue to be so. We need to do our groundwork before we can all move to the new Aquarius energy that's coming by the end of the year. And we cannot expect what the outcome is yet. We only always have the now. But Jupiter retrograde will definitely help us to integrate a lot of what we learned since Jupiter entered Capricorn by the end of 2019. Then on the 22nd, on May 22nd, we have the new moon of this month at 2 degrees of Gemini. Now, it takes place at 7:38 p.m. Central European Time here in Europe and 9:38 a.m. Pacific Time. Now, Gemini is a very fast-moving, buzzing energy and rules information, media. We are flooded with information, as I said before, which makes our minds sometimes dazzle. Freedom of speech is really under scrutiny. And while we see all these bans, like I said before, fake news, who is to decide what's real and what's fake? Now, you might be buzzing with ideas during this new moon, and it's great to set aside some time to write these down. And as always, it's a great idea to use the hours after the exact hitting of the new moon to write down or journal about your intentions. What do you want to make real for yourself in the coming months? And again, if you know where this new moon falls in your birth chart, you make this even more specific. And I will again link the videos on how to do that below and also up here. Now, before I say my final words about this interesting month, May, if you like this video, please hit subscribe and like this video. That really encourages me to keep on making them. If you're interested in my work as a leadership coach using evolutionary astrology, please go to my website, bettypost.com, where there's lots of information, and also you can book an introduction call with me to examine your steps to take in 2020 and leading up to 2021. So lots of shifting in energy again, and we are not done after May, because in June we will have eclipse season again, and of course much more about that in my next video in June. So wishing you a wonderful and healthy month of May, and see you in June. Bye.